On today's show, I have my husband, Philip, and his brother, Keith, and Keith's wife, Lisa. They are going to share a story of their family. Philip just found out about Keith 2 years ago. Keith, for over 50 years, has known about Philip and his siblings. And they're just going to share the story of how we've come to be here. They came to visit us this weekend, and we were able to spend time with them. And even though I just met them in June of this year, this summer, Philip just met them last summer, it feels like we've always known them. And this has been a very shocking experience for my husband, and he'll explain why and how he felt when he found out about his new brother. And it's not like he's blaming anyone. It's just how he felt finding out that the image that he had of his father was pretty much shattered in just one moment. Everything that he thought his father wasn't anymore. And I'm just so blessed to be a part of this family. I've grown so much just being married to Philip. And when I see his family and how they are, just how they handle situations, they always handle things with grace. And after having this conversation with Philip and Keith, they didn't grow up together, but it's like it runs in the family, that whole giving people grace and not judging. And I found this, it's not really a quote, but I found this online, and it's like, wow, I'm learning these things from this family. And I'm just so blessed that I get to witness and have a front row seat to this and soak up all this amazingness. That says, life is too short. Grudges are a waste of perfect happiness. Laugh when you can, apologize when you should, and let go of what you can't change. Love deeply and forgive quickly. Take chances and give everything and have no regrets. Life is too short to be unhappy. You have to take the good with the bad, smile when you're sad. Love what you've got and always remember what you had. Always forgive, but never forget. Learn from your mistakes, but never regret. People change and things go wrong, but always remember, life goes on. And I've always known this about this family, but when this came to be, where the family found out about their new brother, it just solidifies what I've always thought and what I've learned and trying to soak in when it comes to the Talley family. They just accept people with open arms, with no judgment, and not a lot of cynicism, which I feel like I have a lot inside of me, a lot of that inside of me. I'm very cynical of things, and I'm learning to let go. And I'm so blessed that I get to watch this family embrace their new brother in a way that he always hoped and was prepared that maybe it wouldn't turn out that way. I just want you guys to listen to them. I know Virago 24/7 is normally women-led, but I'm loving stories that men are able to bring to this podcast. So this is part 1 of A Family Affair. And yes, enjoy Philip and his brother, me and Lisa. Hi, I am your host, Lyanette Talley, and you are listening to Virago 24/7. Virago is Latin for female warrior, and 24/7 is for all day, every day. Virago 24/7 is a weekly podcast that brings diverse women together to talk about life and our experiences in this world. We share our views on self-love, mental health, marriage, children, friendships, and really anything that needs to be talked about. Here, you will find everyday growth, everyday healing with everyday warriors. Just give me my space to move. 'Cause it's my thoughts, what I want, and I want what I want. Hello, pretty people. How's it going?
Good.
Philip.
Beautiful people.
Philip's here with me, my hubby. You've been on here before. Say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
And we have 2 new guests with us. And it's a quite interesting story because they are related. And it's Philip's long-lost brother, Keith, and his wife, Lisa. Welcome to Virago 24/7. Say hello to the people, Keith.
Hello.
They want to hear your voice.
Not long lost though.
Not long lost.
Now found.
No.
Long found.
I want to get into the story, but yeah, so I actually just met you all in June, and I feel like I've known you all forever, which is like weird. You hear these stories of, people finding their relatives after, 40, 50, 60 years, and how the connection was just so wonderful. And I used to think that doesn't even make sense. How can you be so connected to someone you just met? And now I understand. I completely get it. So welcome, Keith, and welcome, Lisa.
Thank
Good
you.
to be here.
So we just met you all, or found out about you, Keith, 2 years ago. And I want you to take over the story on how we came to be here today, because it's quite fascinating. We've had lots of conversations in a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear your side, your perspective of how you found your other side of the family.
Okay, so
Buckle up.
Okay, so I have always known of them. I just had never met them. And I know we're going to touch bases on this journey, but what really finally brought us together was I wanted 2 things to happen. Number one was first to meet them while Pops was alive, while I was alive, and so that we both could tell a story or verify the story or whatever was necessary. And a couple of things happened during the pandemic, actually, that led up to it. One was my youngest son. We'd had conversations about the family situation, mm-hmm. and he reached out to one of my sister's sons via Facebook. And I thought that was, okay, we're getting close here to a connection.
So he reached out to one of, from the dad's side, from
right.
Philip's side's family. Okay.
Right. Okay. So, and then my niece, who, my brother who was passed, who was also a Talley, she saw a promotional video from Philip's
dental office.
Right. So with that, they sent it to me, and I said, "Boy, this is getting really, really close." I at this time, I need to do something. I wanted to reach out, get the feel of the family. I felt deep down in my heart that we would have a connection. I didn't believe that everyone would be connected the same, but I was prepared to allow them to be in whatever space they were in, because I had many years to play, the tape in my mind, how it might look. So I decided it's time to make a connection. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to a cousin who lives in Little Rock, and they knew, at the time I didn't know it was Ronnie. Okay.
Yeah.
And that started the connection.
Well, I remember, so it was the end of 2020, correct?
End of 2020.
So around that time that year, the Talley family decided that they were going to do Zoom calls because of the pandemic and not being able to see each other. And my mom was visiting, and we're in the kitchen, and we're cooking, and my phone was on the counter, and Philip texted me from the other room. I'm like, why is he texting me? That's weird. He's like, I need a drink. I need a stiff drink. I need scotch. Because I'm about to meet a new brother. And I was like, first of all, he's the youngest of 6 kids. What, there's like more out there? So I was like, what do you mean a new brother? So my mom's like, what's wrong? Because my face was, I can't hide my expressions on my face. And I'm like, I don't know. I got to pour him a drink. There's a brother. He's about to get on the Zoom. So I go in there. He's like, Kaylin said, so Kaylin is one of the sisters, that we have a brother and he's about to come on this Zoom call. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And like, you didn't get a heads up or anything, right, Philip?
No, because Carolyn, so, every Thursday we'd have our Zoom calls. And, originally it was to connect with Dad, and because, we couldn't visit him and stuff during the pandemic. So we started having these Zoom calls every Thursday. So this particular Thursday, Carolyn, at the end of the Zoom call, she told everyone, all the siblings, to stay on because it was friends and family on the Zoom call and, different that knew Daddy. And so she said, all right, I want all the siblings to stay on the Zoom call. And the only other person who knew was John Kevin, what was about to be announced. So Carolyn pops up this photo she shared her screen of Keith with Daddy. Mm-hmm. And, this was probably Daddy, I don't know, 20-something years ago, 30 years ago, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting on a couch with Keith. And I said, man, he looks maybe a relative of some sort. Because he looked a lot like Daddy. And Carolyn was like, who does he look like? And I was like, I don't know. Who was he supposed to look like? And Carolyn's like, doesn't he look a little bit like you? And I was like, I guess you could say that.
This was before Keith got on the call.
This was before he got on the call. And so she said, well, this is your brother.
Wow.
And that's when I texted you. And I was like, I think I need a drink here. She said, and your brother's about to get on the Zoom call with us. So I'm about to connect Keith, and then we can meet our brother.
Oh my gosh, Keith, how did you feel? Were you nervous or you were ready for this moment?
I was ready.
Yeah.
I was really ready. I was very grateful for the moment. Because again, when you have so much time, there's just a lot of things that you just conjure up. And I always conjured up, I believe, the best that could happen. And so it was great to have them all in one place so that I could give them the story and the backdrop of, because the number one question is, why didn't we know? Mm-hmm. And and I explained the journey, Daryl, my brother who's passed, he and I were 10 and 11, respectfully. And we have a lot of family in Little Rock. We live in St. Louis, but a lot of family in Little Rock. And we would come to Little Rock quite often, all the holidays, and just for visit's sake, right? And but this visit was going to be different. And my mother told us that you're going to meet your father. And at that moment, it was I don't know, it was surreal. I mean, I don't know, I was numb.
Well, did you know that because you had a father that you knew?
Well, I knew he was my stepfather, mm-hmm. that we lived with and was raised.
So you always knew he was your stepdad?
I always knew he was my stepfather. But so this was going to be different. And we went to Little Rock, and we got in the car. I got in the front seat. Daryl got in the back seat, and we're sitting there, and he says, I'm your father. I'm your father. I'm your all's father. I said, well, okay. So I didn't know how to, react. I was sponging at that point. And he said that the reason that he was not in our life was because of the relationship with my stepfather was, and without going into too many details, was atrocious. And he just felt it would be better. And my mother also, not just him, but my mother felt it would be better to part ways and just leave it alone. But my mother didn't know her father. So I think she didn't want that for me and Daryl. Mm-hmm. Right. All of my other siblings knew who their father was. We didn't. And I think that it was just something she could not let go on. And so that was the hello. We were kind of delighted because we just, I don't know, it could be that the father that you live with has to discipline you and do all of these things. But it was just, I just thought, oh, this is gonna be fantastic. We got a pretty good dad here, So
did you know that you were meeting your dad?
Yes,
that was your thought.
Mom told Daryl and I, and well, I know she told me because we talked like that. I was the mama's boy. Okay, don't hate.
Lisa's rolling her eyes. Yes, he was.
No, I'm not in agreement.
So she
very much.
She prepped me that was going to happen. And what I said to Philip, what I didn't know is that my stepfathers didn't know that was going to happen. So that tells me at that time we still had a huge valley.
So you got to keep it a secret.
Huge mountain between ever, seeing him come and pick me up, right?
Yeah, that was
not going to happen, because it just wasn't.
Did you know at that time, at that age, that your all's dad, like that Mr. Talley had other children, was married, had a family? Did you know that, or that came later?
At 11, I wasn't conscious of all of that.
Okay.
Because that wasn't a conversation. But shortly after, I'm sure, 13, 14, 15, I'm more inquisitive. And then I find out about Kenneth and Deidre were the first two people conscious to me. And I knew, and then Kenneth had went away to college, and I tried to follow. I knew he did a little bit of writing with Black Enterprise, so I started buying all the magazines.
Right.
So for the people, so that they can understand like the dynamics. Since we're throwing out all these names, Kenneth, Deidre, Kaylin, so let's the birth order and where you fall into that.
So Deidre's the oldest of the original six. Well, not even the original six. Deidre's the oldest, and then there's Kenan, and then there's John Kevin, and then there's Key,
Then me.
then Everett and Carolyn, and then I'm 11 years after Carolyn. I'm the oops baby. So
golden child.
Yeah, there you go.
And then Daryl fell into.
Daryl would have been.
After
He would have been after Everett. Everett was
he was between Everett and Carolyn.
Right. So your mom and your mom, both moms were pregnant around the same time with those babies.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel, Philip? Because I know. Let's talk about you and your dad's relationship, because you are the youngest, so you have a different view of your dad.
Definitely. And, our thing was, I came along as the youngest. At that time, Mama had 5 kids, and she told my daddy, I'm done. This is your child. You're going to take care of him. And that's who I hung out with all the time. I mean, he was always present, always at all my activities, did everything with me. In fact, I told him and everybody else I wasn't going to church unless Daddy took me. Because at the time, Daddy wasn't going to church, working at the post office in odd hours. So on Sundays, he would sleep in. And I was like, I'm not going to church. Is Daddy not going to church? So then Daddy started going to church. And of course, he became a Sunday school teacher and really big in the church. But it was funny, and I was thinking about this. We had the conversation after the funeral when Daddy passed. Carolyn and John Kevin had a conversation about how did Daddy ever teach y'all how to, put up your suits and tie a tie and all these things. Well, John Kevin, Everett, and Kenneth, I guess they didn't have that experience with Daddy, but I did. And for me, Daddy was the epitome of a man, a father. He's someone I tried to be like. We always had a lot of conversations. I was closer to Daddy, I felt, than with Mama, only because of time that I spent with him doing certain things. So after that, when I was just in shock after the Zoom call for a while, because I was like, man. But it was funny because we talked about this the other night. I just accepted it that it was fact. If Carolyn and John Kevin, who knew before us, accepted it as fact, then it was fact. We never even questioned that Keith wasn't my brother or Daryl wasn't my brother. It was more like, okay, man, I have questions now. And when it wasn't questions of, are you really my brother? It was more of questions of, how did this take place? What happened? And what was the time frame? And did Mama know? And all those things. Because I remember after the Zoom call, I called Carolyn after I had another drink. And I was in bed. And I was like, hey, talk to me. What happened? So how did this take place? So it was funny. We never, ever questioned the fact that Keith wasn't telling us the truth. It was always just like, man, this was just like a secret life that Daddy had. And not until you and I were talking the other night where I was thinking back and I was like, man, it was just like a blow to the pedestal that I'd put my father on. Because he'd had conversations with me about being a husband and being faithful and all these things that he would have conversations with me in particular, one-on-one conversations, because we talked all the time. So it was disappointing to see that he wasn't who he portrayed himself to be. However, he obviously portrayed himself to some degree. Otherwise, I wouldn't have looked up to him the way I did and put him on that pedestal. But he was knocked off that pedestal after this whole thing. Because I looked at him differently. But the problem for me, by the time we found out, and of course we were having the Zoom calls, but Daddy was at a point that you could hardly understand anything he was saying. So my biggest disappointment is the fact that, and then mentally he was having dementia and all these other things, and he come and be in and out of reality. So I didn't really have a chance to have that conversation like we would have had. If one, I could understand what he was saying, and two, for him to be of the right mind, for us to have a real conversation about what he was doing, what he was thinking, and why, these things took place. So I never had that closure with him, and he never knew how I felt about the whole process, because it was never anything about Keith. It was just more about my feelings towards him and how now he wasn't the role model that I thought he was. And I never got to have that conversation with him.
Yeah.
So if you could, what would you say?
That's a good question, Lisa.
That's a good question, Lisa. You're going to be my co-host.
Yeah. He just found out she's on.
Lisa, be my co-host. We're going to ask all the questions. I love it.
My lovely wife.
The why, why did you do that? Why did you do that to Mama? Yeah. Why didn't you reach out to Keith and, at least go visit him or something, or at least tell us, be open and honest with it. Because his whole thing was about, got to be honest, got to speak the truth. I think he was embarrassed. I really do. And I think he had lived this separate life as a Sunday school teacher, really big in the church. And, he had all these conversations with me about infidelity and doing the right things, and just being up, all you have is your name, and, all those things he would say to me, so many times that it was hypocritical. But I wanted to know why. Did Mama know? I think in some ways Mama probably did know, but she never let on. And me being the youngest, there was a lot of things that probably took place that I had no clue about, being so young. Carolyn and John Kevin knew, and maybe heard conversations or things like that. But for me, I think I was just so sheltered when it came to things happening outside the house, and being young, you're really just focused on yourself and what's going on in your own little world. And you're thinking your parents are just, they walk on water, both of them. But yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. And then when Daddy passed, it really hit me that, man, I still can't have that conversation with him. And even when he was alive, you couldn't have that conversation with him because he wasn't really there. Not really.
Well, he just passed this
Father's Day weekend.
Yeah, Father's Day weekend of this year, so in June. But you did say that last year when
I first met Keith.
So you met Keith last year around Father's Day weekend as well, right?
Yeah, it was.
So you both flew to Arkansas.
Like the weekend before Father's Day weekend. We went in. Keith came down from St. Louis and Lisa. We actually stayed in the same hotel, Keith and I, and we went to go visit Daddy. And I think this was one of the times where Daddy was in one of his talkative moods.
And he was lucid, right?
Yes, he was lucid. So he actually shared information with Keith and I that he hadn't told anyone. Not Carolyn and Kevin, Deidre, Kenneth, Everett.
I'm not going to ask what it was.
I think the people want to know what it was.
It was just a lot of his
Would you say infidelity?
Infidelities that he had when
Not just with your mom, right, Keith?
No.
with other women when he was on his business trips. And the one thing that, because he was just talking. And Keith and I were just sitting there like, what in the world?
But was it like, boy, your dad had some women back in his day?
Well, no, we didn't have to say that.
He tried to justify it, and then he said when he quit, hanging out and having friends, as he called it, he said, I stopped doing that at whatever age, and I was at whatever year it was, whatever, and I was like, man, I was like 7th grade on this year that you said that you stopped or whatever. And then he tried to make up the thing like, I don't know what your mother was doing.
And we shut him down.
Yeah.
That was quick. I said, oh no, I know what Mama was doing because I was with Mama. So Mama wasn't doing anything. So don't let that come out your mouth. But so that was an experience that Keith and I shared. And we hung out that whole weekend with Lisa and Keith, and I kept calling you saying, man, I got a good brother.
Yeah, he's like, these people, he's like, I don't know what it is, but we just connect. You're going to love them.
Yes.
They're our kind of people. That's what you kept saying. They're our kind of people.
Yes.
And
we had such a good time.
Yeah.
We had such a good time. And it was awesome because, we were in the hotel together. So we'd get up, we go, just, Lisa would Google some spots so we go eat and hang out and talk. And that's when, we talked about, what were you thinking about when the Zoom call happened.
Yeah.
What was Keith thinking about? So, we got to actually kind of, the same conversations that we have now, we had those conversations together, and we just connected. It was just easy. It wasn't anything hard or difficult or uncomfortable or uneasy. It was just, I don't know. It's like he's always been my brother, which he had.
And the other thing too, to that, when you meet people, we know people have different masks that they.
We can stop. You can pour it. We'll
pour me some.
We'll pause for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm having some wine, people, so we do. I'll know this.
Hey, let's just stop the conversation while Philip pours his wine through the aerator. That thing is loud.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was going to be
That's all right. That's all right. Do you need some more tea, Lisa?
But the wine is delicious.
It's delicious. I should have gotten a glass. I'm jealous.
I have your glass in there, though, actually. I'm going to grab it for you, okay?
I love the sound of that.
Yeah. I
This
just
is
wanted to
Lyanette's
say
favorite.
what was just
it's-
mind-boggling to me is Keith at 66 years old. He already has 6 brothers and sisters from his mom. And then to find out he has 6 more from his dad at 66 years old.
That's a lot of siblings, Keith.
To meet them for the first time, that's
a big deal.
yeah. And to have such a great, authentic relationship with everybody, which I didn't think it was going to end up like that, but
Lisa, you said that the other night.
I did not expect
Did you
this.
think it was going to be like, I can't believe this. He's not our brother.
No, I think it was more that they would like hold back on building a relationship, because they were dealing with in their mind, like Philip said, my dad did this to my mom. How can you do this to my mom? And they had been married, many years. So I guess I was just thinking that the siblings might not be as receptive to Keith or as open, to building a relationship with him. But surprisingly, they were very, very accepting and welcoming.
Yeah.
Very loving.
And I think we really meshed really quick. And one of the things I wanted to do was make sure they met me. I didn't have time, and I don't have time to be figured out. This is who I am, and the reason I'm getting with you all, because it's been a lifelong journey to meet you all and be a part of your life in any way that I can. And I wanted my kids to know the family as well. And that's why I took the plunge. Like I said, I took the plunge first because I didn't want my kids to take the plunge and then they get beat down.
Yeah.
I said, well, you know what? If there's going to be a beat down, I think I'm the one to be able to take it and still love them and still care about them. Yeah. And
I don't want to interrupt that at all.
and I think
That's the aerator. Philip's having his next glass of wine.
And I'm pouring for my lovely wife.
Oh my gosh.
One of her favorites.
I cannot edit this out. This has to stay in. This is amazing.
That's fine, though. It's real.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, you did mention that your dad wasn't really in your life, Keith. However, as you got older and you were able to make the trip down to Little Rock, you would come see him. You guys would have lunch together. You would visit him at the job. Let's talk about that.
yeah. So when I was able to drive myself to Little Rock, I did. When my first newborns, Keith and Janelle, were born, I brought them each occasion, brought them down to so that he for the blessings, and that's what you do. That's what a son does, And but I wanted them to know that he didn't really live a secret life. In a sense, but and I'm not trying to justify him either, you know, because he could have did some things. He certainly could have stayed in touch more with me, you know, after, you know, you didn't need long distance to make a phone call, and you could, you know, text and email and all types of things. But I never, that never crossed my mind. One of the reasons I didn't, another reason I didn't want to interfere with the family, and I was teasing with Philip last night. He should be thanking me. If I showed up.
He may not be here today, huh?
If I showed up a little earlier.
That is true.
Right. So,
that is true.
But you know, my life was good. You know, I, like Lisa said, I got 6 beautiful brothers and sisters, my mother, all the extended families. I mean, my life has been full. And the only thing I could think of at that time is, would I upset that family so much that it could break it up? And I wouldn't want my family broken up, you know. So with that in mind, I just played the cards I had in my hand, and that was to visit with him when I did. When Lisa and I got married, we came down and she met him. And then when the twins and Tyler, we came down subsequently for both of those. And then when they were all older, we brought the whole clan down.
Wow.
You know, but it was time in between all of this, you know. So, and I think one thing Pops was good at is compartmentalizing. You know, if it's over here, you can just leave it there and then do every other thing and keep moving. I have a bit of that in me, not the stories he told us.
Lisa's face.
Only
Lisa's
as a
like, wait a minute.
Right. Only as a bachelor. But no.
Oh my gosh, Lisa's face.
Compartmentalizing is what he's talking about.
No, because the business I'm in the hospitality industry, and you're compartmentalizing all the time. You got a situation over here, but everything's good over here, and you just keep.
I think it runs in the family. You're kind of like that, Philip.
I am like that.
I think it's a trait of
service
business
industry.
people.
Yeah, you have to be
And
this way
people.
with people, and you come home, you can.
I can't do that. I gotta get everything all intertwined, get it all out in the open.
Yeah.
I can't function that way.
We saw.
I can't.
Yeah. I got everything has to be all meshed together. I can't separate things.
Yeah, and I remember Carolyn asking me once. She says, "So did he ever buy you anything or send you gifts?" I said, "No, absolutely not. No, he didn't. He didn't. Unless my mother had, if he gave her something, which I doubt, but I don't know. I was a kid, right? But she never said, 'This is from your dad,' or I never had a package arrive, or anything like that. But the good thing, I didn't need a package. What I wanted, the only thing I wanted at that time was to meet my siblings. That's all. I mean,
You said when you come to Little Rock, you were hoping you'd run into.
Oh, when I come to Little Rock and I'd go out and I said, they've got to be out someplace. Unfortunately, they probably were, but I didn't know their faces. I only had names. Mom would update me on the family. Everything, whether it was Everett or Carolyn, that's how I knew Well, that may be a combination. Knowing Carolyn and Deidre was both teachers and that type of thing, and then when Philip was born, not when he was born, but when he started his dentistry, then that's when Philip, came on the radar for me. I didn't know.
So you knew.
Because Philip had that gap, 11 years.
Yeah.
But I knew about everybody else at that point, Everett up to
Carolyn.
Deidre.
Deidre.
Yeah.
From Carolyn to Deidre. And then, so you knew about us. We just didn't know about you.
You just didn't know about me.
Yeah.
Well, but it's a funny thing because, I just believe in this connection thing, that you're connected some kind of way. And I always felt that all of the thoughts that I had and conjured up about them and conversating, because you say these things out loud when you're in the car and you're driving and you're praying and you all this going on. I'm thinking, if we're connected, some of this may be in effect now, and this may make this connection better whenever it happens. And
that's something.
Yeah, so maybe it has something to do with it.
And you were, so Philip's mom died in 2011, I believe. And Keith, you said that you were hoping that after she passed, that maybe there would be a connection then. Did you ask Mr. Talley about that when she passed?
No, I did not. I guess what I wish I would have pushed the envelope a little more after she passed. But I'm not a person to say what if. Mm-hmm. Not much, because I don't know what the what if is. I mean, what if it would have been the worst time?
I think it would have.
Right. And
I
we
really
talked
do,
about that. Could have been the worst time.
I think it would, yeah.
So I take what happened and the time that it happened and say,
perfect timing.
This was the perfect time. And the fact that we connected so easily. Mm-hmm.
True.
And I was really, you can't judge, every situation in person, but it just felt like they were being honest and straightforward with me, with their comments. And I was certainly trying to be honest and straightforward as well. So, and I think with that, I said the other day, I probably bonded more with them in the short time that we've been knowing each other than I did with Pops all the years that I knew him. So it was like, incredible, really.
So you have 5 children, Keith, right?
Yeah.
And it's so cool because we have a Kaylin and you guys have a Kaylin.
That's right.
And you have a Janelle, and one of my nieces is Janelle. And I just think that's really cool. So you have Keith Jr. Is he the oldest? No, Janelle's the oldest.
Janelle's the oldest.
And then Keith Jr.
Then Keith Jr. Then the twins,
Kaylin.
They know who they are.
Yeah.
Kaylin and Darian, and then Tyler's the youngest.
Okay.
And
that was so cool, that Father's Day weekend that we all got together. We got to meet your kids for the first time. Every now and then we see like 1 or 2 on the Zoom call that pop in. But like I was telling you yesterday, they're all just really good people, all of them. Yeah. And you can tell that y'all did such a great job, you and Lisa, in raising them, because they just fit. They just fit with the family. We playing bid-whist and having a good time and hanging out and talking
and they came in so naturally.
They did.
And I mean, this was their first time coming into, this Talley clan, because there's cousins and there's a lot. There's Corinne, our youngest, was like, I just can't keep up with that side. There's just so many. And since Philip's the youngest, the nieces are older, and so they have children, and so there's a lot of second cousins and third cousins. But what I found was that your family just like fit right in.
Yeah, it surely did.
It's so hard to explain. And like with us specifically, like going out to eat with you all, and I'm like, this is my first time meeting you guys, and it just felt so natural. It did. It's so, and the crazy thing about that weekend was we all went down because we were there to see your dad, and it just turned into like this big family reunion. And that, it gives me goosebumps because we came to visit him, we came to bond, and he passed away that very weekend.
On our way down.
Yes.
He passed away.
And
Yeah. And it was crazy because that day, Lyanette and I were at breakfast that morning, and I texted the whole crew and said, hey, all the siblings, we have our own little group text. And I said, hey, I'm going to go see Dad in a couple hours. And I come up to our condo, and probably 30 minutes later, that's when John Kevin called me and said Daddy died.
yeah,
And
it was shocking.
I was blown away.
Like, we knew it was going to happen.
And that's the whole reason why I wanted to come visit. We were on a Zoom call one day, and I saw Daddy, and I was like, you know what? He's not going to be here much longer.
Yeah.
I said, Lyanette, we got to go to Little Rock at some point soon. And that's when we started saying, okay, this is the weekend that we're going to come. And Keith said he's coming down, and Kenneth was flying in from Maryland, and everybody was coming in. We're going to have a get together on Saturday. And so that Friday, I said, I'm going to go visit Daddy now. I'm just going to go and see him and hang out with him for a little bit. And then he had passed, but I just had to go see him. Even though he had died, I still went to go see him. And I needed to say goodbye to him and see him, even when he had passed. And, the good thing was he had passed away in his sleep. He was fine. His quality of life wasn't good at that point anyway. So he'd always told us he was going to see Mama, and he was ready to go. And for us, selfishly, I wanted to see him and spend some time with him. But, he was in a better place. He was happier. And it was time. It was time for him to go. But like Lyanette mentioned to me, it was better that this happened when we were there versus I'm here in Atlanta and he passed away. I would have taken that so much worse. At least I was there. I could go see him before the coroner came and they got him from the funeral home and all that stuff. But yeah, that was just, and then meeting your kids. That was just we went ahead, had the get together on Saturday at my cousin's Michael's house, and we still hung out. We had a great time and met for breakfast at Sunday and just had a good time. And we were like, all right, we're going to get together in Atlanta, have y'all come to Atlanta, which happened this weekend. That's when Lyanette was like, hey, I want to record.
Yeah, let's record. Yeah.
Let's tell this story to everyone.
Yeah.
Well, that gathering was like a family repast, at the end of the day. And you talked about how my kids, blended. They've been on the journey with me because they all knew, right? So, and they had questions that were legitimate.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to them like I tried to explain to Philip and Carolyn and the rest of the family. And not that it made it perfect, but it's just what it was. And so when all this is coming together, they're like, they're happy for me. They're still disappointed in some ways.
Of course.
And Keith had a meltdown.
Yeah, he struggled with it.
Oh, he did.
When he said, he was like, hey,
Yeah,
we coming down here now, and now you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh, he was so hurt. That hurt. And but they were ready to meet the family and see me in the midst of the family. And that was.
And your mom just
And they loved it.
passed away as well this year.
And my mother had passed away
January.
In January.
January.
Yeah.
And
It's been a lot for you, Keith.
well, yeah. It's been, life is a lot for everybody. It's just, I don't, but when your kids hurt,
Yeah.
or when they have moments, and then it just kind of touches you in a little different way.
Sure.
But it's been a journey. It's been a.
Come back next week for part 2 of A Family Affair. Thank you so much for listening to Virago 24/7. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and please give us 5-star ratings. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Virago 24_7 and on Facebook at Virago24/7. And just connect with us and share your story. We'd love to hear from you.